punishment. You ever notice how some people feed off your reaction? The moment you get upset, they win. It's like their oxygen is your frustration. And the crazy thing is, we let it happen because we feel like we have to defend ourselves. Punishment. Prove a point or match their energy. But here's the truth: the power they have over you is borrowed. It's not real. Punishment, and you can take it back instantly by doing one thing: deciding that your peace is more valuable than proving you're right. When you choose that, you stop playing their game entirely. And the second you stop playing punishment, they've got nothing left to hold over you. The first thing you've got to understand is that toxic people need you to step into their arena. They need you to argue, defend, over-explain punishment, and meet them on their level, because that's where they win. But when you control the frame, when you decide that you're not going to give them that emotional payoff, everything shifts. They can talk, they can twist words, they can throw their little verbal jabs, but it all bounces off because you're not inside their game anymore. And the easiest way to do this: stay neutral. I'm not saying you shut down or become a robot. Punishment. I'm saying you learn how to hold your ground without lighting yourself on fire in the process. Neutral is power. It's the ability to hear someone's nonsense without letting it touch your identity. You nod, you breathe. Punishment. You give them nothing extra and watch how quickly they run out of fuel. But here's the thing: this doesn't happen without boundaries. Boundaries aren't about cutting people off cold or living behind some giant emotional wall. They're more like gates. You get to decide who comes in, how long they stay, and what they're allowed to bring with them. That means limiting conversations, saying, "I'll get back to you," instead of answering in the moment, or straight up excusing yourself when the vibe turns toxic. And if you really want to make them disappear from your life, master the pause. Punishment. That little moment between what they say and what you choose to respond with, it's the graveyard for their control. Silence unnerves people who rely on chaos. It forces them to fill the gap, to rethink their attack. Punishment. And eventually to realize you're not the one they can push anymore. But the core of all of this, the reason it works, is self-respect. You can't keep toxic people from testing you, but you can stop them from passing the test. The moment you raise your standard for how you allow yourself to be treated, you become untouchable to the kind of person who lives off drama. Because here's the truth: punishment. People can't keep bothering you when you stop making space for them to. And once you do this, once you choose calm over chaos, neutrality over reaction, punishment, and self-respect over proving a point, you won't have to fight toxic people anymore. They'll just stop showing up because they can't bother someone who's not even in the ring. Toxic people are masters of setting the tone to work in their favor. They know exactly what buttons to press, what words to use, and what pace to keep so that you feel off balance. The reason they do this is simple. Punishment: if they can control the emotional tone, they can control the outcome. If you're angry, you'll say something you regret. If you're defensive, you'll over-explain and give them ammunition. If you're upset, punishment, you'll lose focus and they'll keep the upper hand. The moment you understand this, you realize the game isn't about winning the argument. It's about winning the frame. The frame is the invisible boundary that shapes the conversation. It's the space where your values, tone, and pace live. If you set it, you lead. If they set it, you follow. And once you follow, you're reacting, not deciding. Punishment. Let's say someone comes at you with sarcasm or subtle digs. Their frame is, "I'm above you, and you have to prove yourself to me." If you immediately jump to defend yourself, you've stepped inside their frame. Punishment. You've accepted their reality, and now you're playing by their rules. But what if instead you kept your tone calm, your voice steady, and your pace slow? You don't match their energy. You hold your own. Punishment. Without saying a word about it, you just reset the emotional tone. That's you taking back the frame. Controlling the frame doesn't mean being aggressive. In fact, aggression is just another form of reaction. Punishment. What it means is becoming the emotional thermostat, not the thermometer. A thermometer reacts to the temperature. It tells you how hot or cold things are. A thermostat sets the temperature. When you're the thermostat, punishment, you decide whether the conversation stays cool, warm, or neutral. And here's the beauty of it: toxic people hate when they can't throw you off. They thrive on emotional escalation, when you yell, when you rush your words. Punishment, when you let them pull you into their chaos. The moment you don't give them that, the conversation becomes boring to them. They lose interest because they can't get the payoff they were looking for. So how do you do it in practice? Punishment. First, slow down your speech. It's hard for someone to dominate the emotional tone when you're not rushing to respond. Pausing before you answer sends a signal: I'm in control here. Second, keep your body language open and relaxed. Punishment. Crossed arms, tense shoulders, and rapid movements show defensiveness. Relaxed posture shows security. Third, lower your voice instead of raising it. The softer and steadier you speak, the more you draw people into your frame. And remember, control doesn't mean you have to engage at all. Sometimes the most powerful way to control the frame is to step out of the conversation completely. A simple, "I'm not going to have this conversation right now," or "we'll talk later," shuts down the moment without feeding it. You're showing that you decide when and how the interaction happens. The more you practice this punishment, the more natural it becomes. At first, toxic people will test you even harder. They'll throw bigger bait, try more dramatic tactics, maybe even accuse you of being cold or uncaring. Punishment. That's just their last attempt to pull you back into their frame. Don't take it personally. That's proof you're doing it right. Eventually, they'll either adjust to your frame or they'll leave altogether. Punishment and either outcome is a win for you. Because once you learn to hold the frame, you realize something powerful. It's not just toxic people you're protecting yourself from. It's anyone who tries to pull you away from your standards. This skill spills into every part of your life. Negotiations, business, relationships, family dynamics, every interaction has a frame. If you learn to set it and keep it, you're no longer at the mercy of other people's moods, manipulation, or pressure. You stop reacting to life and you start leading it. Control the frame, control the outcome. It's not about overpowering anyone. Punishment. It's about owning yourself so completely that no one else can steer you off course. And when you do that, toxic people stop seeing you as someone they can mess with because you're not even in their game anymore. Punishment. Toxic people survive on reactions the way fire survives on oxygen. They poke, prod, and provoke because they're fishing for that emotional spark. Anger, frustration, guilt, defensiveness. Anything they can use to gain control of the situation. When you react emotionally, they feel powerful. They've found your weak spot, and now they can steer the conversation in whatever direction benefits them. Neutrality takes that weapon out of their hands instantly. See, most people confuse neutral with passive or uncaring. It's not that at all. Neutrality is a position of strength. It's choosing not to give away your emotional energy to someone who doesn't deserve it. It's deciding that your peace matters more than their opinion, their tone, or their attempt to pull you into a fight. Here's the thing, when you meet a toxic person's hostility with calm, they don't know what to do. They're expecting you to snap back, to get flustered, to try to prove them wrong. Punishment. But when your face stays relaxed, your tone stays steady, and your words stay measured, you're silently telling them, "I'm untouchable." That's not weakness, that's dominance without aggression. Neutrality doesn't mean you let bad behavior slide. It means you address it without letting it drag you into the emotional mud. For example, instead of saying, "Punishment, stop talking to me like that," which they can spin into an argument, you could calmly say, "We can have this conversation when the tone is respectful." That's a boundary, not a reaction. Punishment. You've made it clear what you will and won't engage with without raising your voice or feeding their drama. Another key to staying neutral is controlling your pace. Toxic people want to speed things up. They'll interrupt. Punishment. Talk over you, push you to respond before you've thought it through. Slow it down. Pause before you speak. Take a breath. This isn't just for you. It sends a signal that you won't be rushed into playing their game. And yes, punishment, they might accuse you of being cold or unfeeling. Let them. That's just frustration talking because they've realized their old tricks don't work anymore. The truth is punishment. Neutrality makes you unpredictable to manipulative people, and unpredictability is their worst nightmare. When they can't anticipate your reaction, they can't control the outcome. The best part, neutrality is a skill. Punishment. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. Over time, you'll find that you're no longer wasting energy on every jab, insult, or passive-aggressive comment that comes your way. You start picking your battles, and most of the time, punishment. You'll realize they're not even worth picking. Neutral is power because it flips the script. It shifts you from being a puppet on someone else's emotional strings to being the one holding your own. And when you hold your own, punishment. Toxic people lose interest fast. Why? Because it can't feed off a fire you refuse to light. A lot of people hear the word boundaries and picture isolation, shutting people out, building walls, cutting the world off. That's not what healthy boundaries are. Boundaries aren't about locking yourself away. They're not about becoming cold or unreachable. They're gates that you control. And a gate can open close and set the terms of entry. Punishment. When you see boundaries this way, you realize they're not a punishment to others. They're protection for you. They're how you decide who gets access to your time, your energy, your emotions, and under what conditions. Punishment. Toxic people hate boundaries because it means they can't just walk in whenever they want and dump their negativity on you. They have to knock. They have to wait. And they might not get in at all. Here's the truth, punishment. If you don't set the terms, someone else will. And with toxic people, those terms will always benefit them at your expense. They'll call you when it's convenient for them, unload their problems on you without asking, punishment. Push conversations into topics that drain you and expect you to be available on demand. A gate changes that dynamic. It forces them to work on your schedule with your rules. Setting these gates doesn't have to be confrontational. Punishment. It can be as simple as saying, I can't talk right now, I'll get back to you later. Instead of answering the phone every time it rings, it can mean excusing yourself from a conversation when it turns disrespectful. It can mean deciding certain people don't get to know certain details about your life. You're not being rude. You're protecting what matters. And here's the part that surprises people. Real boundaries make relationships better. The people who truly care about you will respect your gates because they know it's how you stay healthy, grounded, and available in the long run. Punishment. The only people who get angry when you set boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none. Boundaries also give you space to respond instead of react. When you control access, you create breathing room to think, to process. Punishment, to decide how you want to show up. That space is where clarity lives, and clarity keeps you from making decisions you'll regret later. At first, toxic people will push back. They'll call you selfish. Punishment. They'll accuse you of changing or not caring. But that's just noise. What they're really saying is, I don't like this because it means I can't control you the way I used to. That's not your problem to solve. Punishment. Your job is to hold the gate. Over time, boundaries become second nature. You stop explaining them, defending them, or feeling guilty about them. You simply live by them, and the incredible thing, you start to attract more respectful, supportive people, because the energy you used to spend on defending yourself is now invested in relationships that actually feed you. So no, boundaries aren't walls. You're not cutting the world off. Punishment. You're just making sure the people who walk into your life and stay in it are the ones who respect the home you've built inside yourself. You're the gatekeeper, and that means you decide who gets in, how long they stay, punishment, and how they behave while they're there. Toxic people want you to react instantly. They want that quick, heated, unfiltered response because that's when you're most likely to say something they can twist, use against you, or turn into a bigger fight. Their influence lies in that split-second gap between what they say and what you do next. If they can make you fill it with emotion, they win. But if you fill it with silence, their power starts to crumble. Punishment. Silence is uncomfortable for people who thrive on chaos. They expect you to jump in, defend yourself, match their volume, or fire back with your own jab. When you don't, it throws them off balance. Punishment. That pause isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's where you take back control of yourself in the conversation. See, when you pause, you're not just avoiding an argument, you're deciding how you want to show up. Punishment. You're giving your mind time to catch up to your emotions. In that space, you can ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Is this the right moment to respond? Do I even need to respond at all? 9 times out of 10, punishment, you'll realize the answer is no. That silence also sends a subtle but powerful message, I'm not going to play your game. And here's the beauty of it. You don't have to announce this out loud.
Yeah.
You're calm. Punishment, deliberate pause says it for you. It's like holding up a mirror to their behavior without uttering a word. Retaliation feels good for about 5 seconds, but it always comes with a cost. It escalates the situation, fuels the drama, punishment, and keeps you stuck in their frame. Silence does the opposite. It diffuses, it resets, and it protects your peace. It doesn't mean you'll never respond. It just means you'll do it on your terms, with clarity instead of impulse. Sometimes that pause is just a deep breath. Sometimes it's a simple hymn or I hear you before changing the subject. And sometimes it's walking away entirely. Punishment. All of those are forms of silence that take the sting out of whatever they were trying to provoke. At first, toxic people will try harder to fill your silence. They'll push buttons, throw in more insults, punishment, or act like your lack of reaction proves you're wrong. That's just desperation. The more they try and fail to get a rise out of you, the more they realize you're no longer a source of fuel. Punishment. Here's the thing, silence isn't about ignoring problems. It's about choosing when and how you address them so you don't give away your emotional control. It's the pause where you shift from reacting to deciding. Punishment. And in that pause, their influence dies because it can't survive without your reaction to feed it. So the next time someone tries to pull you into a fight, don't take the bait. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. Punishment. It speaks volumes without saying a word. And what it says is, I'm in control here, not you. Toxic people are like opportunists scanning for open doors. They're looking for the smallest crack, your need for approval, punishment, your fear of conflict, your willingness to put their comfort above your own. If they sense those things, they see you as someone they can manipulate, guilt, or drain. Punishment. That's why self-respect isn't just a nice quality to have. It's your loudest, clearest no without ever having to raise your voice. When you truly value yourself, you stop needing external validation to feel secure. Punishment. You no longer feel the urge to explain every decision, justify every boundary, or apologize for existing. That shift is powerful because toxic people survive on your need for their approval. The moment you stop needing it, you stop being controllable. Self-respect shows up in the little things: how you let people speak to you, how quickly you respond to demands on your time, how much space you give to people who don't pour anything back into you. It's the way you carry yourself, the way you follow through on the boundaries you set, and the way you refuse to lower your standards just to keep someone around. And here's the truth: self-respect doesn't require confrontation. Punishment. You don't have to argue about your worth. You don't have to convince anyone to treat you right. You simply model it in how you treat yourself, and the wrong people will filter themselves out. They either rise to meet your standard or they fade away. This is why I call it your loudest no. You don't have to scream it. You don't have to write it in all caps. You live it. You live it in how you choose your environment. Punishment. In the conversations you engage in the way you handle being provoked. You live it by deciding your peace is not for sale at the price of someone else's comfort. Toxic people will notice this shift immediately. At first, they may push harder because they're testing to see if you mean it. But when they realize you're no longer willing to bend, when they see that you value yourself enough to walk away, they stop seeing you as an easy target. Why? Punishment. Because easy targets give, bend, and break. You do none of those anymore. Self-respect also changes the way you see toxic behavior. Once you know your value, you stop taking manipulation personally. Punishment. You start recognizing that their behavior says more about them than it ever will about you. You stop asking, why are they doing this to me? And start asking, punishment. Why am I still giving them space to do it? That question alone changes everything. When you stand in self-respect, you give off a kind of quiet authority that doesn't need to dominate or control. It simply exists. And toxic people, punishment, who rely on uncertainty and insecurity to keep control, can't stand up against that. It's like trying to push over a brick wall. They eventually get tired and move on to somewhere easier. So if you want toxic people to stop bothering you, start here. Value yourself so deeply that you become immune to the cheap tactics they use to pull others in. When you hold your self-respect like armor, punishment. You don't have to keep fighting them off. They just stop showing up because they know they can't win here.